Hey folks, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Kat. I'm a licensed registered dietitian nutritionist, and on this channel we like to talk about weight inclusive and weight neutral focused approaches to health, as well as diving into scammy and, in my opinion, unethical nutrition related businesses, products, mostly nutrition related MLMs, and other fear mongering nutrition related claims. In today's video, we are just going to be doing a reaction video. I had this coaching call or coaching Q&A sent to me, and this is a coach or a distributor for Beyond Slim. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Beyond Slim and their major product, Zip Slim, I encourage you to check out my video. I'll have it linked up above and in the box down below. In that video, I did do a breakdown of kind of who the owners are, where it started from, what the main product is, a breakdown of the product with the ingredients and the research that they often like to claim behind that product, and then also talking about their nutrition program or their fitness program overall. So check that out if you want to know more about that. Long story short, it was not a product or a program overall that I felt comfortable recommending for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons was their emphasis on what they call thin foods and how they break down foods into different tiers. And they have tier 1 with some specific fruits and vegetables, food in general, and then tier 2 with some other fruits and vegetables in there. And they really kind of put these levels of importance and like encouraging the reduction in the intake of like apples and grapes, being that they're in lower tiers just because of their the amount of carbohydrates in them. And like, I don't typically come across people who are eating too many apples or too many grapes. We want to encourage generally more produce intake, more fiber intake, and depending on the availability and the cost of specific produce like apples and grapes, those could be more accessible to people. And so I just don't like the idea ever of reducing or encouraging this kind of reduction in produce intake. And on top of that, putting food in this kind of good or bad categories. We talk a lot about food neutrality on this channel, meaning that we are able to approach food with curiosity, compassion, and context, and make the best decisions based on those three things: curiosity, compassion, and context. That's like the foundation when I'm helping people build a healthy relationship with food and encouraging building and supporting a healthy relationship with food. The furthest thing that I want to do for that is to put foods in these kind of good and bad categories or these tiers. So the call that we're going over today, this is from one of the distributors. And just like for the rest of my channel, I generally will blur distributors. The main focus that I like to focus on is what they are saying. If they are a like public figure, if they are like really top of that MLM or that structure, then I'm less worried about like trying to blur them out or anything like that. But especially for kind of lower distributors and stuff, there was just some concerns that I was hearing in this coaching call or this nutrition Q&A that I wanted to talk about. Now, if this person does come across this video, they're like, I have a lot of frustration. At the same time, like several years into making anti-MLM content, I still have compassion, because for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is my own experience of being in a nutrition MLM and just experiencing when you're in and you're really trying to help people and maybe not understanding, you're maybe causing some harm. And so like depending on the reach of the person, that does impact how I might respond to that person and my like level of snark, I guess you might say. But this is, from what I have found, not a super high level distributor, but they still do have a pretty like, they have people under them, but that's kind of my understanding of this person. And if you know who this distributor is, please do not send any harassment or hate or anything like that. That's not what we do on this channel. So before we get to that video, please leave a like on this video. Make sure you're subscribed. So if all that sounds good to you, let's go. Also, I'm really sad because the little pop socket that I had, I dropped my phone and it broke. It looks a little weird back here, that's why. Another thing, before we really dive in, I am not sure of his kind of qualifications for talking about this, for really diving in and doing this kind of Q&A on nutrition and health. One of my concerns around, and one of the reasons why I focus on nutrition related MLMs a lot of the times, is that they will only have the qualification of being 18 years or older and paying for your starter kit or your own product to become a distributor, and not having any need for any kind of qualifications, actual legitimate evidence-based qualifications, right? And so there's so much nutrition misinformation in general, and the fact that, in my opinion, multi-level marketing, the nutrition related ones, really make that they perpetuate that, in my opinion, because of so many people kind of coming in. Nutrition is one of the biggest, and this can be applied to so many different areas, but the Dunning-Kruger effect in nutrition, it is real. It is very, very real. The amount of people and the amount of coaches who just have this sort of, and I struggle with this sometimes of talking about this, because I don't want it to be perceived as like bullying or trying to like tear people down, because that's not what it is. The concern is the misinformation. It is a disinformation, so like intentionally providing false information, but then that being taken by well-meaning people who maybe don't have, the background to know and recognize that disinformation, and then talk about that, perpetuating that information, which then is misinformation. That's my real concern. MLM and nutrition coaches who don't have solid qualifications. Everybody, not everybody of course, but so many people think that they know like enough about nutrition to go on the internet and just like make all of these statements that might in some cases have shades of truth to them, is not applicable to all cases, and they just kind of throw it out there like it's applicable in all cases. Just makes my life really challenging. So yeah, I don't know what his qualifications are, but I did watch this before, and there's a reason why I'm reacting to it, basically.
I actually have a list of questions that I've gotten over the last couple of weeks, but I'm going to kind of do what I can in the next 10 to 15 minutes here, and hopefully I can answer most of them. And if I don't get to all of them, I'll definitely try to get to all of them on a future live. So first one is by Wendy, and it's, how do I stop overeating on the weekends? I do so good during the week. I get in a routine, and then all of the weight I lose during the week, I gain back on the weekend. And this is very common.
So that's actually something that a lot of people experience, and I've been asked that exact same question. Let's see what his response is, and then I will let him respond first, and then I will share my thoughts.
I've heard this for decades. And so the scenario is this, like you can be pretty good during the week, or you're pretty strict during the week, and then the weekends come, you lose inhibition, and you want to have fun, and I understand that. I definitely understand. I think we all can relate to that. You want to have a little more freedom on the weekends, but then, whatever deficit you had during the week, whatever calorie deficit, you end up giving back those calories. So you could basically, like whatever you lost during Monday through Friday, you essentially give those all back. And that's a very common problem. And I can relate to that because it's happened to me. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. So let me give you some potential solutions to that. But, the main thing with weight loss is that we have to look at the common denominator for all weight loss, and it's a calorie deficit. So how you get there, there's a lot of ways to get there. But for example, if somebody is being really strict during the week, they're probably not going to want to be strict on the weekends. So there's a couple of ways around this. One,
I know I said that I was going to let him finish, but one of the ways around that is to not be on a restrictive kind of diet like the Reboot 66. And the idea of putting these foods in different tiers and having guidelines or restrictions around them that make you choose those various tiers based on, or make you choose portions based on those various tiers, and just having that kind of restriction overall that Beyond Slim is recommending. That's how you stop from experiencing that.
It's to have more of an even meal Monday through Sunday, so that you don't have this, like, I'm going to deprive myself all week so that I can let loose on the weekend. For some people that works really well, as long as you keep your calories in check on the weekends. For other people, it doesn't work. So one scenario could be that you include a little bit of fun food during the week so that you don't feel so deprived. So what I find is that this all or nothing mindset, this all or nothing mentality of, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything bad, whatever that means, during the week, and I'm going to not eat much during the week, naturally you're going to be hungry. And there are hormones, hunger hormones, that are released when you are in a deficit. The more extreme the deficit, in most people, the more extreme those hunger hormones are.
And that is why I really am against a lot of dieting programs, a lot of nutrition programs, because of that deficit. And also, just even if there isn't that deficit so much, if there is that restriction on just the foods in particular, that can make those restrictions or the desires for those foods, it can make those increase. And that can be a result from doing programs like the Reboot 66.
So you can only use willpower. You can only use, this motivated, like, self-discipline so much before you just have to give in. And I think a lot of people will end up overeating on the weekends because they're so hungry. So one of the main solutions there is to not go so strict during the week so that you don't have to lose it on the weekends. Can you catch my point here?
The problem is with him encouraging people to not go so strict during the week, that goes against what the recommendations are for the company that he's part of and that the product that he is promoting. And so this makes the people who are watching, who are his viewers, who are the main targets of this video, kind of confused because they're like, well, do I need to focus on what the program guide is telling me? Or like, how do you apply what he just said to that kind of program?
The more strict you are, the more potentially you're going to eat when you run out of willpower. And I think that happens to a lot of us on the weekend. And any weight that you lost, I mean, if you don't eat during the week, you're going to lose weight, right? You just struggle through it. And often if people are really busy, and they're really busy during the week with kids and work and responsibilities, you kind of are so focused on doing stuff that you kind of forget to eat sometimes. But then eventually, once the weekend hits and you don't have those responsibilities, you recognize, and this is really important, it is the self-awareness to understand how, your constitution and how you respond to food. Food is not evil. Calories are not evil. Giving your body nutrients and food and a little bit of fun food, I think, is natural. So if somebody is stuck in this chronic gain weight.
I like how he says that food is not evil, but the fact still stands that the program still puts food in a good and bad category. And when you are putting food in a good or bad category, we know that can lead to, whenever somebody does have those foods in that bad category, it can lead to feelings of shame for eating that. Like, why am I eating and choosing these foods again? Like, can't I just get it together? Or it can also lead to feelings of guilt for doing that, for doing so good during the week, and then having that kind of intake that is bad, quote unquote, that can induce those feelings of guilt and really not supporting and building a healthy relationship with food. And when he's talking about like willpowering through it, yeah, you don't want to have to be willpowering through it. That is one of the reasons why it's very important to work on more intrinsic kind of things that are going to help support making choices that are in alignment with making your body feel good. And one of the ways that we can do that is by approaching food with that curiosity, compassion, and context, and also a more understanding that there is not this kind of all or nothing, black or white kind of good, bad, foods and really being able to look at the neutrality of it and then going from there. And at the same time, also recognizing that maybe you had a really stressful week. There is nothing inherently immoral or inherently wrong with getting some relaxation or some kind of joy from food. I think sometimes we can hear about emotional eating and automatically say like that is not a good thing, you don't want to do that. There is some kind of positive that can come from that. It's only really when it starts to create more cons than pros in your life, then maybe we can try to find something else that is going to better be a form of self-care for you in those moments when you do have that kind of emotional response with food. So this is a really good example, in my opinion, of this kind of like wellness culture. Like in Scooby-Doo, how at the end there would take off the like sheet or whatever, the mask of the person, and it would be someone underneath. It's diet culture underneath, and this kind of wellness culture is like on top. Like a lot of this kind of sounds good on the surface, but when you look back to what are the recommendations beneath that, not very helpful things for building a healthy relationship with food and sustainable kind of changes, because that is very important. That's something that we talk about a lot on this channel. When we don't have sustainable changes, what we can see, second and third order effect, are weight cycling, so up and down, and a result from that can cause more damage to the body. Talking about cholesterol levels and blood pressure levels, that is stressful on the body. And so we want to reduce that. We want to reduce that weight cycling. So what can we do to reduce that weight cycling? Having more sustainable actions. And what can we do for that is really building a healthy relationship with food and not having this kind of dieting programs and these kind of dieting products. So it's not that I'm like out here just like hating on these kind of diet MLMs because I'm a hater or something, I don't know, but it's the second and third order effects of what the research shows, of what we know.
Lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, especially on the weekends. I say that the main strategy would be to not be so strict during the week, to not lower your calories so much during the week and maybe lose a little bit less weight so that you don't have to overeat on the weekends where your body's just like, I've had it. So remember that lowering your calories too low is a stress to your body. It's a stress to your body. Your stress hormones will go up. Your hunger hormones will go up. Now, to some degree, a little bit of hunger is natural. It's okay to be hungry a little bit. That's not like a crisis. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It's just sometimes we got to deal with a little bit of hunger. But excessive hunger is really challenging to deal with, and it's just a mental battle. So that would be my first solution, would be to not.
Can be a little bit confusing. So an example of what like applicable wise, if we're looking on the kind of hunger and fullness scale, which there are so many reasons why the hunger and fullness scale might not be able to be applied like just on a stomach hunger like basis. There are so many other subtle signs of hunger, like changes in mood, changes in energy, maybe thinking about food a little bit more, maybe being a little bit more irritable, things like that. There are so many ways that we can approach the hunger and fullness scale without actually like thinking about stomach hunger, right? So, because I know that stomach hunger sometimes can be really confusing. And so there's a lot of other subtle signs of hunger that we can use and that we can kind of approach to make that hunger and fullness scale a little bit more like applied. So in there are kind of just some general recommendations as far as like mindful eating and intuitive eating and that framework around that, when to start eating on the scale from 1 to 10, like maybe at like a 4, you maybe like bring that up to around like a 7, and all of that can change based on the context. Within that context, the hunger, like if you're at a 3 or a 4, that is okay. At that point though, we do want to kind of get a snack or get a meal. And so I feel like what he was saying, that, like it's okay and stuff like that, that can be taken to an unhealthy level, in my opinion. Hearing someone say that like, yeah, go ahead and be hungry. And when you have so many people who do go so many hours without eating, without getting nourishment, I'm just not the biggest fan of that. I think that can be a little bit dangerous depending on audience. And typically what we know is that people, if they are dieting, they've typically gone on multiple diets throughout their lifetime. I'm concerned about his audience in particular hearing that message being in his group because there's a good chance that this is not the first diet that they've been on. And so my first thought is like, what is their relationship with food because of typical dieting behaviors that we see over time? Like for some people hearing that, that's, not gonna be negative at all. But again, looking at the context of the situation, that is not something that I would say to a group of chronic dieters who regularly go long periods of time without eating, especially because this program does encourage fasting
during the week. and if you really associate the emotional just being with loved ones and going out maybe on a date with your husband or wife or friend or whatever, we associate really good emotions sometimes with weekend eating. And I think the goal is to not, eliminate healthy, yummy foods on the weekend. Like we don't want to say, no, I can never eat. I can't have a beer with my friends, or I can't have a piece of cake, or maybe you like cookies, or you like, I don't know what it is you like. Maybe you want a slice of pizza or two with the kids. But it's to establish a better relationship with food. So rather than demonizing food and demonizing like that's bad, this is good, remember it's about energy. If you are consistently not losing.
So I don't know if you noticed my eyes. He said he brought up having a healthy relationship with food. And so anytime that I hear someone recommend that, like there's a part of me that's like, yes, absolutely, we do want that. There's also another part of me, because of how much misinformation there is, or not, misinformation is not the right word here, how much diet culture has taken this kind of idea of healthy relationship with food. Like we've seen it with Weight Watchers, we are like changing their name. We've seen it with so many different companies and products really promoting this healthy relationship with food while still promoting toxic dieting behaviors. And so that is like a red flag. Unfortunately, as much as I wish that every time I heard somebody recommend that or support that I would know like where they're like standing, what their views on food and approaching nutrition and things like that. You can't, I can't trust that. And especially when somebody is promoting something like the Reboot 66 and Beyond Slim in general.
In weight, you're just consuming too much energy. Now, hopefully the Zip Slim helps with that. I find a lot of people, they immediately get this almost like this, they just lose the size of their appetite when they're on Zip Slim, but not everybody. Some people still have that hunger, and it takes time. So my solution to that is to not have the all or nothing mentality, but just to learn to put restrictions on, not restrictions, but put borders around your food. And one of the main things that my wife and I use with our clients, but we employ this ourselves because we don't really deprive ourselves, is the one plate rule. And saying, okay, you're going to go out on the weekends and you're going to enjoy, but you're going to have one plate of food. And put whatever you want on that plate. But once the plate's done, it's over. That's it. And you set that rule for yourself. You basically say, I want that cookie.
So no restrictions, but you can't have more than one plate. That is a restriction, sir. That is the definition of a restriction. That is like no different than having like containers, portion sizes, and saying you can only have this much, like what we see with Beachbody or Body. You can only have that. Except this one, he's saying a plate. You can only have that plate. That's it.
Oh, and I also have a one dessert rule too. Because then that allows you to not feel like you're deprived. But it also, that you've set some firm boundaries. Like, no, you have a one dessert rule as well. So
that allows you to feel like you're not deprived. No, that would make me feel deprived, because let me just share an example. So pan dulce is something that I grew up around. Like on Sundays, we would go get pan dulce. That was just something that we did. And to this day, and it wasn't every single Sunday, but even to this day, like when I go, I would get a variety of pan dulce because I want to have, like, they have different textures, different flavors, and I want to experience those different textures and flavors. And so if I only said, like, I can only have a concha, no, that's not going to fulfill that. I'm still going to feel restricted if that is my, like, one dessert plate. Even, like, if I think about on when I'm, like, with family and we might have this kind of, I'm thinking about, like, a holiday or something, like on Thanksgiving, there might be, like, I might want to try some of the pumpkin pie and also the pecan pie. I'm not, like, even if I feel like I need to choose just one dessert, that's not going to fulfill that desire. And I know that's just my experience in general, but, like, even when we're talking about, in some cases, like exposure therapy specifically related to foods, being able to have foods in the house that, like, sometimes people feel like they can't have a specific food in their house because they will consume all of it at once, and just kind of, they don't have that skill yet to approach that food and not have it become this kind of, what they see as kind of like this chaotic kind of experience and not really enjoyable experience overall. And so for something like that, depending on the case and the situation and the context and a whole lot of other things, we might do something like exposure therapy for that food, because the goal would be to be able to have anything in the house and not feel like it is that kind of, like, experience. Also, I'm going to put him at 1.25 speed just so we can get through this a little bit faster, because I'm just talking a lot.
Once you establish these ground rules for yourself, you get the best of both worlds, where you get to enjoy the foods you want, but because you've put these self-imposed borders, then you're not going to overeat. You're not going to have 3 pieces of cake or, a whole pizza. Whatever you can put on, like, a reasonably sized plate, that's what you're going to do.
What that is doing is putting this kind of restriction. It's not helping that person actually build the skills to approaching that food and having a portion that is going to be overall supportive of their health and joy and, like, experience and everything that we need food to do for us.
And, for the people that are really anxious about that, that kind of leads me to one of our next questions. And let's see. Well, actually, my wife asked this and wanted me to talk about that. But somebody asked me from a couple weeks earlier. It was about the anxiety of going out, and this is kind of similar, I guess, to the first question. But how do you take the anxiety? How do you take the anxiety of out of the equation when you go out to eat or you go to a party or or whatever? And I think that's a very, very good question, because I think a lot of us do have a lot of anxiety, especially when you've worked really hard and you've made progress and you've lost weight. Like, nothing's more mentally gonna make you feel bad is when you know that a lot of the progress you've made, you're gonna give back. And that's where the anxiety comes from. The anxiety comes from us not...
If there is anxiety around going out to eat, whether it's an event or like a large event or a smaller event, just going out to eat, because what you're doing is not really applicable to that place, that might be a sign that you are on an unrealistic program. And for some people, like with people with certain food allergies or certain digestive health conditions, that might just be something that is an individual basis, that might be that anxiety because of the lack of like control that they have in that situation. That is different. If you don't have those kind of food allergies or food like concerns, digestive wise, any of that, by putting yourself on a program and like inducing that kind of anxiety and stress, that is unnecessary. That is like a huge sign that what you're doing is not sustainable. And I'm not mad at the people for doing that, because they've been told to do that. Dieting culture is very pervasive. I'm more mad, I am mad at the perpetuation of that, the coaches promoting that.
Wanting to lose our gains, not wanting us to go back to what we were. So I completely understand that. But I mean, I think it's really important to acknowledge that this stems from you not wanting to ruin your progress. And I think that's important, because that means that you care. And that's awesome. And also when you go...
I don't think that needs to be acknowledged. I think that is like, that goes without saying. In my opinion, I don't know. I think that's like obvious. I don't know.
Go out, sometimes you don't know what's going to be available. Like you don't know the food that's going to be there. You don't know what the situation's going to be. You don't know what the menu's going to be like. So that in itself is another form of anxiety. And I get it. There's like, we don't always know everything, right? There's some variables that are somewhat out of our control, which further add to the anxiety. So what I do is I want to give you a couple mindsets here to help you with that anxiety. And it's to remember that, number one, you cannot screw this up. You cannot screw it up, especially if you're in this for the long run. You realize that, nobody got skinny by eating one salad, and nobody got fat by eating a donut or by eating a piece of cheesecake. It's the totality of what you do over time. So once you understand that if you do go over your calories, big freaking deal. It doesn't matter. Why? Because you're in it for the long run. The only way you lose is if you just quit and you just stop this process.
So it doesn't really matter, but at the same time, we're still going to encourage you to have those restrictions, like the 1 plate rule. Got it.
Right? You stop your goal of maintaining weight. And so I'd say number one, realize that you cannot screw this up. It doesn't matter what happens in that one meal. It doesn't matter. It's a blurb on the radar screen. So you've got to mentally stop yourself and say, it's okay. Yes, you can put borders there, whatever. But if you do go over, not a big deal. You get right back on track. So number one mindset, I want you...
Like that is one thing that we will agree on. Yeah, that's not... And the thing is, like, health is so much more than just what we eat and how we move. Of course, it also includes our sleep habits, our stress levels. But even beyond that, we have everything that's included in the social determinants of health, which arguably makes a bigger impact on that person's health overall. So their access to healthcare, their access to food, their quality of air, the systemic kind of conditions around them in which they have grown up, their education, their extracurricular activities, and the options available to them. So many things impact health. And we also need to remember that health is not just a physical aspect. It's mental, social, emotional well-being as well. So I'm glad that you're saying that, but even so, I think there is it's a little bit deeper than what I have heard from this, but yeah, I don't know.
To kind of internally understand is that you can't screw it up. You cannot screw it up. Why? Because you're going to get back on track. Big deal. It doesn't matter. And then the second thing, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is I want you to establish what I call bright lines, right? Where imagine you're putting a big bright marker or something on a sheet to where you can see it, and you establish your own bright lines. And that helps you. So one of the bright lines is you establish the 1 plate rule. Okay, that is a great way, because then you go out and I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's in the food and calories. I have no idea. But that's a bright line. You've just established that big...
See, again, wellness culture, diet culture underneath.
Colorful marker. You just say, because that's a rule. Say, no, I have a 1 plate rule. And whatever I eat here, I'm going to eat. I have a 1 dessert rule, right? And that's it. So those are concepts of bright lines that allow you to exist in the world, to exist and have a social life and not feel like you need to hide at home and take your mouth shut. That's a terrible way to live. So that can be, those can be really, really good concepts to understand that, yes, we need to set boundaries, and you can establish what those are. And another big one's with alcohol. And I say with alcohol, if you do want to drink, set a limit. Maybe you have a 2-drink limit and you never go over that. You just, and if you can't moderate alcohol, then you just don't have it. Then I just have to say, sorry, this isn't a healthy endeavor for you. But if you can moderate it, I see you have a 1 to 2 drink limit, whatever that is, that's a bright line, right? That is yourself. That's a rule that you can establish. And once you understand that this whole process is about you establishing better relationship with food, with desserts, with drinking, so that you don't have to shun it and you don't have to feel like you have no control over it. Once you do this a couple times, you develop the skill. Remember, a lot of this is skill development.
A lot of times, and I'm not going to say anything about the alcohol because that is a very individual kind of thing, and yeah. But talking about food in particular, so many people do already though put those kind of restrictions and those kind of rules. And what we find is that the continuation or the consistency around those rules is the concern a lot of the time. So how can we have that relationship, that healthy relationship with food, without having to rely on this kind of external rule of this 1 plate dessert or 1 plate of any food on the weekend.
You're developing the skill of having a better relationship with alcohol, having a better relationship with desserts, having a better relationship with food, with lasagna, with pizza, with whatever it is you love. Recognize that you do have control. You do have control, and you can establish your own bright lines. Now, one thing that I think can also help too is we have to talk about the influence of other people, because there's other people there that maybe don't know how serious you are about your health or about your weight loss, or maybe they know, but they're very uncomfortable because you're disciplined and they're not. And they're going to be like, come on, have another drink. Oh, what's one more piece of dessert? Live a little bit. Come on, what are you doing? Be like me and fat and overweight. No. So you can use the personal challenge rule and say, you know what? I'm doing a personal challenge right now.
Food is also connection and culture and love and joy. And so maybe they are encouraging or like trying to share some food because they're trying to share some of that side of things. Like, I don't think it's always going to be this kind of negative, it's coming from a negative kind of place. Maybe it is in some cases, but I don't think their size has anything to do with it in particular.
I'm having 30 days with no alcohol. And they're like, oop, okay. You say, no, you know what? I'm doing a 30-day challenge and no desserts right now, so thank you, but no. You can just pull that out and use that as like a block saying, kindly leave me alone, right? I have a personal challenge right now with, I'm lowering my carbs or whatever it is. I think you get the concept, but use that as an excuse. And it's not an excuse, but if you feel peer pressure and people are pushing you and people are wanting you to do it, I think that is great. I'm having a 14-day no alcohol challenge or whatever it is. But I think we need to be very strategic. For those of you that have not had success with consistently.
And also though, if like a no is no, right? And so if you say that no, like you don't want to have whatever it is food wise or anything, I would hope that the people that you're surrounded with would take that and respect that without having to say that you are in like any kind of challenge or anything like that. Now, I do recognize that that's not always the case, but I don't know how I really feel about, saying that you're doing this kind of challenge or something like that, because I'm not a big fan of challenges. They are short-lived. Typically, once people get off of them, habits kind of go back to what they were. Sometimes there can be that weight cycling as part of that and as a result from challenges. So I'm not for the encouragement of that, but yeah, I do recognize that sometimes even if you are trying to say like, no, I'm good, I don't really want that, if they're not respecting that no, then that can be really frustrating, and that's not okay. And that can be like very culturally tied as well. So yeah, that's just a hard situation to be put in. And I have worked with a lot of people, even like on digestive wise, who their families are still like trying to push foods that we know like clinically won't work with them. So it can be a very stressful kind of situation. So, it depends on the person, what our game plan or plan of action might be to approach that. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that happens.
Being able to stick with your weight loss, I guarantee you it's because you're not deploying some of these concepts, some of these tactical strategies that are going to help you navigate those situations.
Tactical strategies. I've never heard of a diet being the terminology around it being the tactical strategies and deploying the use of a dieting program. I don't know. It's just kind of funny. I've just never heard tactical strategies being used to describe nutrition, but yeah.
And get victory. So where you leave that situation and say, wow, I've just done something that I've never done. I've honored myself. I'm in alignment with who I want to be. I had a piece of pizza or I had a drink, but I didn't overdo it. I didn't self-sabotage. So can you see how all these questions are all kind of rooted in the same situation, the same pool. And that is not having the confidence to understand that you can live in both worlds. You can have a social life, you can enjoy food, but you don't have to go overboard. You do not, and you can develop the skill over time. And if you do have
and that is true, but you don't have to follow a nutrition program or be on a dieting product like Zip Slim in order to do that.
Where you're like, oh, I blew it. That's when you need to stop just meditating on the bad and say, hey, I'm good most of the time. Don't feel good about that meal, but you need to let it go. It's one meal, or it's one event, or one wedding, or whatever. You went out with the girls after work and maybe you had a couple glasses of wine and you ate more nachos than you wanted to eat. If you get back on track, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't screw this up. You cannot screw it up, remember? So hopefully that kind of makes sense. All right. Let's see. Edith asked, how many snacks can we have in one day and what are the good healthy snacks? Well, again, this really depends on kind of your hunger, and self-awareness I think is really important, where some people do really well with like intermittent fasting and they don't need to snack and they can not eat from, dinner till like 1 o'clock the next day and just go back to eating normally and they're fine. Other of us, many of us cannot do that because then we're so hungry. And I know for me, intermittent fasting doesn't work really, really well for me because then I end up overeating. Why? Because I'm hungry in the morning, very hungry. And if I don't eat, I'll end up meditating on food and just eating more food than I would ever have eaten. So it backfires. So you can see that intermittent fasting can backfire. Now, I know the question is not about intermittent fasting. The question is about snacking. But
whenever someone who can go like long times without eating, my main question or concern, if they are wanting for me to comment on what they're doing, one of my concerns is metabolism, because we know that once you go for longer amounts of time, that can have maybe not so positive impacts on metabolism, especially for women. So that's just a side note.
I always like to say, and when we travel, Lee and I always do this, you want to prioritize your snacking around higher protein foods. So it could be, if you tolerate dairy, it could be like a cheese or a string cheese or something like that, some kind of a high protein cheese, a mozzarella stick. It could be a good jerky, like a beef jerky. In South Africa, they have something called biltong, which is this amazing. It's like their version of beef jerky. You can get tuna jerky, you can get salmon jerky, you can whatever protein you like. But the bottom line, though, is that if you need snacks to kind of balance your blood sugar, I would prioritize protein first, higher protein. If you do well with yogurt, you could do like a Greek yogurt. It's really high in protein, like 20 grams of protein in a cup. That's a lot. That's a decent amount of protein. So there's options, and then of course you could throw some carbs and some lower glycemic fruits like berries and whatever fruits that you like, I think are fine.
So for a snack, I really like to encourage people to have balance. So protein, yeah, that can be helpful. It's going to be typically a little bit more like satiating. It's going to help us to feel a little bit full. If we can pair that though with some kind of carbohydrate, that'll help with more like immediate energy, because carbohydrates are typically a little bit quicker to digest. And so we have that great balance of quick energy with a little bit more sustained energy. So like an apple with peanut butter, for example, is like a really great option for a snack. It's going to be pretty balanced. The balance is there, and nutrient density as well. So yeah, and if for some people they don't like snacking, I am a huge snacker. My meals are typically on the like smaller side because I like to graze a little bit more throughout the day, and I find that is just an enjoyable way of living for me.
But overall, though, it's about balancing your energy and getting you to the next meal without overeating. So if some people snack and it triggers them to eat more, then maybe they don't need to snack. Some people are snacking out of boredom. Other people genuinely need to snack so that they keep their blood sugar a little bit more stable. And
I will say that a big part or a big factor in that now, the like more consistency in eating for me has been with just like having my baby. And now he's a toddler, but he's still nursing, and so like I'm needing a lot of like those snacks in between. And he's eating mostly like solid foods, but he still likes to nurse. Snacks it can change based on the person and like what is going on, if they're in a time period where they need more calories, depending on kind of what's going on, things like that. So yeah, it just depends on the person. If they do consume snacks, if their lifestyle is like fits with having snacks, if that makes sense with them, if they like it or not. It's not something that I like force people to have, but if they want to have snacks, then cool. Let's see if we can get a little bit of nourishment in there, make it balance, get a little energy, more sustained energy, and just kind of have a good time.
And that they don't overeat at the next meal. So I think again, there's not a one like stop answer for everybody, because it really depends on who you are. But in general, we want to prioritize, we really want to heavily prioritize protein dominant snacks, and then add a little bit of carbs to that as well. So and usually protein has fat in it, right? Most protein has fat in it. So you're
I think we can kind of approach the protein and the carb kind of equally. There's going to be benefit to both. And so with his idea of like prioritizing it, like you don't have to. You don't have to. Also, if you want to have a snack and it doesn't have any protein, that is also okay.
You're getting that nice combination where protein and fat help regulate blood sugar. Helps regulate blood sugar. It helps regulate appetite.
So does carbohydrates. Carbohydrates help regulate blood sugar as well. I would say that that's more going to change blood sugar level. So.
And protein gives you the most satiety, meaning that it makes you the most full, which is why I'm a big fan of just making sure that you're eating more protein. And as we get older, like especially those of us that are 45, 50, 60 plus, we naturally don't absorb as much protein, which means we need to eat a little bit more of it. So we should not be eating less protein as we get older. We should be eating more, right? We definitely should be eating more.
I mean, eating more, it's not so much the absorption issue. It's more of just like appetite can sometimes go down at a higher age, and it's not so much more, but it's just like we still want to have an appropriate amount of intake, and so sometimes that intake can naturally decrease, and so I know the term or the word like more, like that's subjective. It just depends on like more from what has been recommended or more than what you were doing before. Like it just kind of depends on what you were doing, but yeah, you still want to make sure that you're getting a good amount. As far as like the absorption and stuff goes, like we see with B12, sometimes deficiencies can go up because of something called intrinsic factor. And that can be an issue in older people being able to absorb and utilize B12, which is typically found in protein-dense food sources.
So that would be my answer in terms of snacks. Let's see what else we have here. Besides water, what else can we drink and not gain weight? Well, water should be your number one focus in terms of liquids, but I mean there's lots of like LaCroix or like some of those sparkling carbonated mineral waters. Those don't have any calories, so those are a great option, especially if if water gets kind of boring sometimes. You need a little bit of flavor in there. I would go with one of those, like Costco sells like a Kirkland one. LaCroix is really popular. There's one that's actually called Bubbly. They're all calorie free, so from like a weight loss standpoint, you're not going to go wrong with those because they're still going to give you liquid, but they're going to have that flavor, which may be just what you need. So I would say, I would go with those. But I mean, like even if you did have like a protein shake or something which has calories in it, you put fruit in there. Like if you're not over your calories.
This dude's really focused on calories. Yeah. So one of my other things that I like to drink is just electrolytes, like Ultima Replenisher. I think those taste amazing. And sometimes when I want to be in a little bit fancier of a mood or whatever, I just want a more fun drink, then I'll add some frozen berries to my Ultima Replenisher, and it just makes it more cute and makes it more fun to drink.
You're not going to gain weight. So, I think Connie said she was tracking on MyFitnessPal, and that's a really good app to track your calories. Not everybody needs to track their calories, especially if you are losing weight. It's not essential. I find that most people, 30, 60 to 90 days of tracking diligently would be a really good habit. Not to do forever.
Most people. He encourages most people, or he thinks that most people would benefit from tracking calories. I thought he was going to say that most people don't need to track calories because most people don't. If we are like nobody, you don't owe health to anybody, right? Like that's a baseline. If somebody does want to put more emphasis on what their intake is and how they're moving and really wants to maybe change some of their like lab values or situations, like whatever, like if they want to do that, then what we're going to do is put more emphasis on foods that we can maybe include a little bit more of. We're going to focus on foods to increase intake of, And those foods are going to be nutrient dense foods. They're going to be foods that really support our hunger and fullness cues. And remember what I was saying in the beginning, there's more to hunger and fullness cues than just our stomach, because that can sometimes be a little bit confusing. And depending on the situation, whether it's like different medications or activity levels or stress levels, or like even in neurodivergency, like that can play a role in how you perceive hunger and fullness. With those foods though that we're going to be focusing on, and the other ways that we can approach a hunger fullness scale, we don't have to track those calories or track those macros. The majority of people, I would say, don't need to do that. And so like that is something that him and I don't agree with. And so many people, yes, not everybody who does that will get an eating disorder or get swept up into disordered eating habits, but for so many people that is what triggers their eating disorders. And with that being the number one most lethal kind of mental disorder, eating disorders, that is not something that I'm willing to just kind of say most people need to try, because that is dangerous. And that is not something that I will ever say that most people need to do, because they don't. We don't have to do that in order, if somebody wants to make changes to their health with food, we don't have to do that. Like that is just such a surface level kind of way of approaching health. It's outdated. Like we know behavior change is a huge factor. Like yes, there is that more like hard science, biochemistry. We know like energy intake wise, all of that stuff, the breakdown of macronutrients and all that stuff. We have to pair that when we're talking about sustainability and when we're talking about reducing those risks of weight cycling and that stress on the body and the second and third order effects that causes like issues with cholesterol and blood pressure, with that extra stress and weight cycling. We have to pair together behavior change science, behavior change evidence, and those don't align with those more like traditional typical dieting recommendations. So no, that's like the most frustrating thing that I have seen from this coaching call. So yeah, completely disagree with that.
Just so they understand the energy that's in food, right? I mean, calories it's just a unit of energy. It's just a measurement, and all food has it. But once you understand like the portion sizes of rice or vegetables or fruit or a banana or oatmeal or yogurt or steak or chicken, you start to get an appreciation of what is like how much energy is in food, and then you really empower yourself to understand that, oh, well, if you're not losing weight, it's because you're eating too many calories. If you're not, if you're gaining weight,
there's so many other reasons why that might be going on. Like hormonally, there could be more like inflammation going on. Like we can't just focus on reducing calories and then saying like, oh, okay, you're not losing weight, so you're not trying hard enough, or we need to reduce it even more. Yes, there is that whole kind of calories in, calories out transfer of energy. But when we're talking about humans, we need to look at a broader picture and not just say reduce your calories by 200 to 300.
You're eating too many calories. So it does come down to thermodynamics, which is energy. And anybody that says elsewise doesn't follow science.
It's not that anybody who does not promote that kind of idea, just focusing on like the calories in, calories out, doesn't follow science. Is that we're taking it a step further and looking at more science, more evidence, more lenses that we need to look at the situation. And it's not like that is just the very like simplistic foundation, but there's so much more on top of that. We can go beyond that.
And if somebody says, well, I was tracking calories and I haven't lost any weight and I've been doing this for 2 months, I'd be like, you're not in a calorie deficit. But they're like, but I am. I'm like, no, if you were in a calorie deficit, you'd be losing weight. So often maybe the tracking is not accurate, or what I find is actually more common is that people are not tracking everything they eat, like the oils and butters. And a tiny little like tablespoon of oil has 130 calories. Sometimes you don't even know that you make a big salad dressing, you've eaten an additional 5-6.
Can you imagine somebody who's just trying, they're on this kind of, they've done even like an in-body scan that looks at their lean body mass and spits out their basal metabolic rate, or they've done other kind of basal metabolic rate calculations online, but they have a thyroid condition and they are technically on a deficit based on either the online calculator or the bioelectrical impedance analysis scan where it looks at lean body mass and their height and their age and all of that, but they aren't seeing that change. And imagine this dude telling them like, you're not eating on a calorie deficit, when they are eating on a calorie deficit, but their calorie needs are maybe different because of their thyroid condition. Like, how frustrating would that be? You don't need that in a coach, Ed. Just in my opinion.
600 calories, that could completely blow your deficit. So that's why I really am a fan of tracking, because I think it can help people. And I think it can really empower people to learn.
It can help people. It can help a lot of people into disordered eating.
And how to, because the whole goal is to be self-sufficient, and to understand that you have the power.
The goal is to have that self-sufficiency, not needing to follow a specific dieting program or dieting plan or purchase an MLM dieting product. Who's the one teaching self-sufficiency? I don't want to work with people long term. Like, I will work with you for as long as, we need to. But after that, I'm not going to keep you on this plan where you need to like consistently pay years and years and years down the line. There is this encouragement to continue to stay on programs, MLM dieting programs. There's incentive to continue and stay.
To do it. Edith says, can you explain the calorie deficit? Yeah, I mean, so basically everybody has a base level of calories that they burn. Even not extra, I'm not even talking exercise. I'm just saying sitting on a couch, you're going to burn a certain level of calories. And that's your resting metabolic rate. Then there's something called your basal metabolic rate. But the bottom line though is that you have a baseline depending on where you are right now. And if you maintain that, you'll stay where you are. Give or take a pound or two. That'll be your weight. Well, if you're consistently going into a deficit, let's say your calories you needed every day to maintain your weight was 2,000 calories. And you went into a deficit of 1,500 calories. That's a pretty big deficit, 500 calories. That's I would say maybe 200, 300 would be more sustainable. But let's just say, just for the argument's sake, you went to 1,500 calories and you were able to average that over a week. Well, in 1 pound of fat, there's 3,500 calories. There's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of body fat. Well, if you were in a deficit of 500 calories a day, times 7 days in a week, that's 3,500 calories. We know there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. More or less, you should lose about a pound a week.
Again, taking that very baseline understanding, like you learn that 500 calorie, that 3,500 calorie amount in 1 pound of fat, like that is the Health 101 kind of info in the class that they would have that in. There is so much more on top of that though. We can't just put that kind of deficit on someone and expect to see that. There are so many reasons why we won't see that. And that doesn't mean that they are not following that plan.
Right? You can definitely lose a pound a week. Now, some of it might be water weight, but more or less, that's kind of the science behind it. And if you went 1,000 calorie deficit, sure, you would lose weight faster. Not healthy. Usually that's called yo-yo, right? Where maybe somebody can survive for a week or 2 or 3 on a 1,000 calorie diet. It's not going to last long. And then the rebound effect is going to be so massive that they're going to gain weight really fast. And they may end up even fatter, which is why the extreme yo-yo dieting is so detrimental, which is why I like small little changes, small, tiny little changes that you can do and you can sustain.
Even not extreme, we still see some concerns around like smaller weight cycling. Again, looking at the viewership who he's talking to, I wonder how many of them have been kind of chronic dieters. And we know that when somebody does go in a deficit, their body typically responds a little bit quicker, a little bit easier the first time they do it, or like one of the first times that they do it, rather than like if they continuously do that over and over. Like someone can lose this much with a caloric deficit and then they might regain that weight. Next time they go on that exact same caloric deficit, they might not lose that same amount just because of how their body is responding to that kind of weight cycling and diet cycling. So again, if it really was that simple, do you not think that we would like like dieting culture would be a thing. Like it would just be so simple as that, and like there wouldn't be the dieting culture, the dieting industry would not be where it was today if it was just as simple as what he was saying.
Forever. So will the weight loss be slower? Yes, it will be slower. You know, a 200 calorie deficit, 300 calorie deficit, you're going to lose slower, but you're not going to be as hangry. You're not going to be as upset. You're not going to be as weak, right? Because when you lower your calories, your body has to downregulate everything. You won't want to move as much when your calories are low, because it knows like, oh my God, I don't have a lot of energy coming in. Ooh. So in extreme dieting, you won't want to move at all. You're just like, oh, and you'll be tired. You won't feel that good. So dieting is hard. Extreme dieting is stupid and not sustainable. So I like tiny little.
So is doing Zip Slim, in my opinion. I'm sorry, that was kind of mean. It's just, there are maybe more evidence-based ways of approaching health than using a program like Reboot 66, in my opinion. Just saying.
Changes where you're making smaller incremental changes in your diet, but something that you can live with. So maybe for most people, I would say if you're not in the calorie counting phase right now, don't even worry about it. Just add more protein. Literally, that in itself, 30 to 60 days of that, you're going to lose weight. Why? Because you're going to change your biochemistry. You're going to change your insulin. You're going to change your appetite. And usually you won't have as much room in there or hunger to eat all the carbs and fat that you normally eat, because protein is filling. So exercise can help, but remember though that there's people that exercise every day, every single day, and they still don't lose weight. So exercise is great, and I would say do it, but if you are still overeating, exercise is not, you can't out-exercise a high-calorie diet. It's just almost impossible, unless you're like Michael Phelps or something and you're...
Okay, I'm just going to speed this up a little bit more because my battery is blinking, so I'm afraid that I'm going to be shut off.
Phelps. So you really got to understand that, your exercise needs to be sustainable. It doesn't need to be excessive. Excessive exercise is going to make you hungry, which is going to defeat, right? So the most important thing is a calorie deficit. You do that through food.
That's not the most important thing. The most important thing, in my opinion, is just food neutrality, getting nutrient-dense food, and approaching it with curiosity, compassion, and context for it to support your health, physical, mental, social, and emotional well-being consistently, sustainably.
Here, and then plans, ideas, or strategies for eating out. Actually, let's see. Colleen says, can you drink your Zip Slim when fasting? I say yes. Yeah, there's no hard rules. Like I said, I think that's totally fine. It's got some calories in it, but it's so minimal. It's got 5 grams of sugar. I wouldn't even worry about that. So I would say absolutely. And then plans, ideas, strategies for eating out and traveling. Yeah, so when you eat out, that's, especially if you're traveling. We were just overseas in Cape Town. And you don't always have access to the food you want. Everything's different. The portion sizes are different. Luckily over there, actually, they don't eat as much as Americans, so the portion sizes are much, much smaller, which makes you think about America. Like, we eat too much. But so for eating out, when you're traveling, here's some really, really good strategies. Is one, walk a lot.
Saying you eat too much. There are so many people in America who don't have enough food. So not everybody just eats too much in America. Like that might be what you are experiencing. So many people aren't able to get enough nourishment. Just putting that statement on America, not a fan of it because of how many people experience food insecurity. Okay, my battery died. I am so sorry. I know this is not like professional to do in a video and just change cameras like this, but I only have one battery. I should probably buy another one, but I know y'all don't come to my channel for like exquisite quality in video production wise. Like it's the content itself, the words. That was pretty much the end of the call. I shared a lot of my thoughts on this. It's more concerns around this kind of wellness culture underneath or above this kind of toxic dieting culture still at the core, which is my view of where I see a lot of nutrition related companies, a lot of nutrition related MLMs. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this reaction. Did you agree with me? Did you think I was completely off? If you did, that's okay. Thank you so much for watching, and that's it for this video. Remember, you can strive for health without subscribing to diet culture. I'll see you later. Bye.